Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from deltacx.com, and welcome to episode 170. We are not doing office hours today. We'll do that next week. This is normally office hours, but today we've decided to do a special Halloween themed show for the spookiness. Ooh. And we are going to have a special guest joining, and we are going to be telling wacky stories of unethical and wacky people. Hello, Ralitza. If you have a story to share, you can send it through the usual office hours Ask Me Anything link. You'll find that at deltacx.com/links. Please leave names and company names out of your stories. We're going to be telling the stories today. Hi, Alvina. Good to see you. Join us for Story Wackiness. And of course, as always, I want to thank all of the people who are donating to the channel in small and large ways. Thanks for keeping me in chocolate chips and streaming software. Totally optional, but I'm always grateful for it. And we do have to end a little bit early today because I am going to be speaking at a conference. I am, I think, the closing keynote for the day at a QA conference. So I'm excited about that. That's why I've got my official Delta CX shirt on. And hi, Manuel. So let's bring in our special guest. And oh, wow, we have a certain Jeffrey in the chat. I think we know that guy. He's been on the show. Hey, Stephanie, tell us all about you.
Hey, happy to be back. Yay. I love the spooky font for today. So I'm Stéphanie Walter. I'm a UX researcher and designer. It's spelled Stephanie, and Walter is spelled Walter. And I work mostly in enterprise UX those days, which means I'm designing product services that are used by employees to do their daily job. So yay. And I have a blog, which is stephaniewalter.design,
Cool.
where I publish a lot of stuff. That's it.
Yes, follow Steph on Twitter and LinkedIn and stephaniewalter.design. And I have to apologize. I think there's a little extra delay between you and me, but hopefully we will navigate that. Hello, Chandra Kanth. Good to have you here. Your name seems new to me, so welcome. Again, if anybody has creepy, spooky, unethical stories, send them in, deltacx.com/links. Leave names and things off. I want to start out with a story from, I'll just call it relatively recently. I was working at a company and we had somebody interviewing for our senior researcher job. And this person currently worked at a very well-known company, so we figured, oh, they're probably pretty good. This is exciting. And eventually, the head of our department who was interviewing this person, I wasn't there, I heard this later, asked this person, if you don't mind me asking, why are you leaving famous company? And the guy's like, no, I'm not leaving. And they're like, but this is a full-time job. Is that a full-time job? And he was like, yeah. And they were like, well, what's your plan here? And evidently the plan was to get 2 full-time jobs and just try to juggle them and try to not have meetings at the same time. This person claimed that the famous company really didn't keep them that busy, and they really thought they could juggle 2 full-time jobs at the same time.
Wow. Please don't make that person a project manager. Otherwise, the planning and everything will be wacky as well. Like, yeah, look, you can have 2 full-time jobs. It's going to be okay. No, hell no. Oh, boy.
Yeah, Elvina says at least they were honest. Yeah, they were honest, but that sure was beyond weird. That one was spooky. Is it unethical? I think it could be unethical to try to take full-time jobs, for 80 hours a week, but you're really working 40 because you're doing both.
Not just unethical, like in some countries, you'll have big issues with tax because they are automatically declared, then you're declaring 2 companies at the same time. So unless the 2 companies are not in the same country, then Because I had the issue when I was working in Germany, coming back in France, I had a little overlap. So I had to say, no, I can't start this date because I'm officially still hired by the German one. I have to delay until I'm not. So even if I'm on holiday for them, I don't want any issues with taxes. So it's unethical, but also not a really good idea, I think, on the tax. And like,
Both
no, who does
both
that?
countries, both companies were headquartered in the same country, as far as I know. So that could have been interesting.
Ouch. Ouch, ouch. Not a good
For
idea.
sure. S- Steph, while I dial up another story that people have been sending in anonymously, do you want to tell a wacky story of the weird and unethical and spooky?
Yeah, sure. So I'm in a position where resume come through me for UX and UI designer. So I sometimes have to check the resume and everything. And I get this portfolio, and as a designer, you have a weird hunch where the portfolio is meh, average at best. And then you look at the case studies and they're like, yay, flying iPhones and every mock-up around into an iPad, this really like dribbly Beyond's case study, very visual one, very polished and everything. So like, okay, this is definitely a red flag. But let's let's keep an open mind. So I double checked the stuff, and it takes me like 5 minutes. So there was actually two people who did that. So the first guy, he got some things from Dribble. It took me 5 minutes to find the project on Dribble. That's how bad that person was. And then I reached out to the people in Dribble. I was like, hey, look, this guy is applying. He says he did that. He used the visuals. Did you work with that person? Like, I'm not accusing them of stealing. Maybe you worked together or something. And like, everyone said, no, I don't know that person. They clearly stole my content. So the Dribble guy, I just ghosted him. And then the other guy, he stole from Behance. And I actually confronted him. I'm like, look, I asked that company, you never worked for them. They never heard of you. So what's going on? And then he tried to bullshit me, like, yeah, but I didn't work directly for them. I worked through a company in Switzerland, so maybe they don't know I worked for them, but I actually worked on this project. It's like, huh. So can we do an interview? It's like, no, today no. I just blocked him on LinkedIn. But I'm amazed, like, one time is weird, but two times, so I'm pretty convinced that there's a lot of people who do that. And not only it's unethical, but also like it was clearly a visual designer job. He was just kind of applying for a UX position. And at some point, you have a super high level skill in your portfolio. And if you get hired, people expect you to do that. So, what do you do if you get the job because you didn't have someone like me who double checked? So I'm like, yes, that's very weird and not a good strategy at all.
No,
Ready for
for
the.
sure. That reminds me of a similar story where a friend of mine said, "You're not going to believe this. We've got a job open at my company for UX manager." And we got in this resume and it looks really good. Is this guy's been a UX manager in a few other places. He said, but like something about it made my Spider-Man sense go off, my Spidey sense. So I
Yeah.
decided, spooky. So I decided I'm going to look this guy up on LinkedIn. And he found the guy on LinkedIn and he found all the jobs that were on the guy's resume or CV. But on LinkedIn, they all had individual contributor titles like senior, mid-level, UX designer, but on his resume, they were all like UX manager and things like that. And my friend was like, oh, okay, looks like this guy faked a bunch of his titles on his resume and thought we weren't going to figure it out. And, as you said, you can fool people, but once you show up and you do the job and it's pretty clear you haven't managed before, That's not going to go well for you, especially at a company. Many companies now have probation periods where you can be fired in the
Yeah.
first 3 months for any reason at all and just walked out the door. And if they figure that out in the first 3 months, you're probably not staying. So we've got a
No, but
comment
most,
from
yeah.
X Matification. Oh, sorry. It says, we had that happen recently. Our case study was copied and added by a total random person we've never heard of before. Super hard to file copyright complaints on Dribbble.
Yeah, Dribble is a mess.
Let's
If it's a
see.
website, actually, you can use the abuse, I think. I used it a couple of times when there's no contact form. Most of the time, it's not even real website. It's just those kind of shady, scrapped blogs that would scrap anything. And then you contact the host and you say you abuse, and you say, yeah, this is a stolen copy. And most of the time, they just don't even negotiate. They just take it down. But yeah, if it's Dribble, it's very, very complicated, I think. Because you have to, that's the fun part, is you have to prove you are the person who did it first. So that's the cool thing I have with my website, though, is
Right.
the code is on GitHub, and a lot of the content I have is hard coded into the template because I'm lazy. But then I have a history of every modification of my homepage and everything. So if someone who got inspired by my website kind of tries to claim to say, yeah, prove that you were first, I'm like, sure, I can. I have all the GitHub logs and everything to do that. So no one tried that yet, but in case. But yeah, true. Hard to
Yeah.
have things removed from
Excellent.
Dribble and Behance and a website like that.
Let's see. We got a few in anonymously over the last few days. Let me read some of these out. Obviously, removing some of the company names you all sent in. Please don't do that. Okay, here's a. Manuel says, not my story, but one of my friends had a guy copy his whole portfolio word for word and got a job in the United States. Terrible. I hope that person is figured out. Annie says, I also reviewed quite a few resumes recently. There are a couple of them are titled as UX UI designer and CSS developer, web developer, and UX manager, graphic designer. I think they just had all the titles they know linked with the name UX. Yikes, Annie. Okay, here's another one we got anonymously. This story goes like this. I did a design, and my lead came back to me requesting that me, as well as the developer working on the project, to change the flow according to what she wanted. And when we asked her on what grounds this should be changed, her answer was, because I said so. I requested a meeting with her and the developer to explain to her that the user will basically get stuck if we update the flow to the way she wants it. And she said, I don't care. Just do what I told you to do. After all of this and me refusing to update the flow, I got called into human resources for not wanting to do what she said I must do. Spooky.
That's super red flag, though. But the annoying part is
Yeah.
it's still like that in some companies. Like I have a similar story where
Oh, sure.
someone would cherry pick usability testing results based on do they go into their direction or not. So at some point we had a strong argument, which was like, yeah, but this website, this page doesn't make sense. And they went, yeah, but we tested that. And it's like, okay, I wasn't there yet when they did that test. I'm like, okay, can I see the test protocol? Because I saw the page and there was no way in hell that page performed well. The information architecture made no sense. And so I asked for the test protocol and stuff. And well, let's just say that a focus group is not a usability test. And if you show a really, really, really shitty page and a kind of less shitty page, obviously the second one, people will say, yeah, that's way better. So, of course. But yeah,
Oh,
my
this
advice
hurts.
here is,
I don't even
yeah,
have the right
so,
sound effects here.
spooky. But yeah, it would be like if someone says you, yeah, you
Yeah, I
performed
didn't
well in the
download
test before.
spooky sound effects. Yeah.
But yeah, ask for the test protocol and the transcript or something like that just to make sure, because someone trying to pass a focus group where people gave their opinion as a usability test. But the thing is, I don't know if it's unethical or that person really thought the focus group was a usability test, you know. I have a similar issue with someone who had an NPS and they put all the yellow one, so the medium one, they put it as positive. So they said, yeah, we have only that many people who disagree. The rest is okay with the stuff. And again, I don't know if that person was cooking the data on purpose or if that person has absolutely no idea how NPS works, statistics, stuff like that. So at some point, it's sometimes a little bit hard. Like, is this unethical or an honest mistake? But at the same time, it goes towards that
Right.
personal agenda. So in both cases, it's always a little bit tricky, I guess.
Yeah, totally, for sure. I'm going to read another spooky story that came in. And it says, UX researcher here. My manager, the head of product, was arguing with the head of marketing over price. My manager told me to do some usability tests and give him the answer he wants. He told me to cherry pick the data he wanted to get the results he needed to prove the other person wrong. I refused. Long story short, he harassed me out of the job.
Oh, that's really bad. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Gosh.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's a horror
Nope.
story for sure.
The thing is,
Solomon
I'm
says when
convinced
the
this
evidence
happens a lot.
disagrees with your claims. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry about the delay we're having today. Solomon says when the evidence disagrees with your claims, you can always ignore the evidence. Yeah. Ouch. So, oh, wait. I think we're just getting an anonymous one in now. Let's see. Let me refresh. If it's an office hours question, I'll be doing that next week. But let's see what's coming in. Because I didn't prepare a separate system. Wow, I think it's me. I think my internet is being a little slow and wacky. I apologize. The delay is my fault. Hello, Debbie. This doesn't go into the spooky category. Oh, so I guess that's for
So it's
next
office
week's
hour.
office hours? Person who asked it? Yeah, that's next week, everybody. Okay. This looks like an office hours question. I'm skimming it to make sure it doesn't name any names. Let's see. It says, I was assigned to a project in the beginning of my career on which one senior designer was working before. They'd been working on the project for 3 months already when I joined. They were supposed to mentor me and give me feedback. We started with onboarding, and they couldn't even explain what the project was about. As it turned out, they weren't even attending project stand-ups. When it came to design itself, I wasn't given any constructive feedback, nor was I mentored. Moreover, I was reprimanded when I tried to go the extra mile and make some improvements to the design. I still don't understand how this person reached the senior level. Sorry to that person, too. That story sounds very familiar. I might even know who you are.
Oof.
And to the person who has a not spooky story, I will answer that one next week. Let's see. Joffrey says, I worked for a company where someone not in the UX industry was doing A/B testing for 3 days and took pretty bad decisions based on the 3 days result. At this time, we didn't have enough data to make the decision wisely. Of course, instead of listening to the designers, they decided some years ago not to have designers anymore, but more marketers. Why not?
Yeah, but that's the thing. Sometimes the designer tell you stuff you don't want to hear. So
Right.
why
Absolutely.
keep a designer
Bearer
who...
of bad news.
Yeah. That's, I think, the hardest part of the job, which is if you have to bring bad news and say, I heard something like that. So it's not my story, but I was talking with another designer, and they basically, so the client asked for some usability testing, and the usability test went pretty straightforward. Like the UI was very good, no issues. The issue was that they didn't only do usability testing, they also did a little bit of interview. And all the people they talked to, they were like, yeah, it's very easy to use, but I would not use it because I don't need such a complicated system to book holidays for my workers. So it was kind of for small companies, 10 people tops, and they were like, yeah, we have a calendar. And the person was like, okay, how do you tell the client that usability wise it's okay, but there's no market for that product? Basically, which is very tough position to be in. It's like, yeah, the company that worked on that, on the usability, all good, but doesn't mean you will sell that product that's to someone. It's like,
I have a similar story I want to tell after I read David's comment, which says, unethical spooky story here. I have had 3 design challenges end up in production for the companies I interviewed with after I was not hired for the role. Oh, that's spooky. That's a horror story indeed. And David, I've heard that from other people as well. Those stories are too common. One of the many reasons I warn about design challenges. My story, similar to Steph's, was many years ago. I was freelancing at an agency, and a well-funded startup came in the healthcare space, and they wanted their website updated. And the only thing they knew was it should have a flow more like our customer support workflow. Like if you call customer support and ask us things, we walk you through a certain script. We want the website to walk people through the same thing. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll do the best I can to make that make sense. But it didn't make sense. So I ended up doing things in a different order. And when I showed it to them, they were like, oh, no, 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 no. That's not the order we want this in. Our legal department will never approve it being in this order. And I said, but this is healthcare stuff. And like your first question to people is like their name and address and stuff. Like they still don't even know why they're there. And you're asking them, their sexual history. And they were like, no, do what we're saying. So I was like, whatever. So I was like, okay, here's your version. And they hired an outside company to do live moderated usability testing. I think it was $25,000 for the usability testing. And I was watching remotely from my apartment on video. It was really a cool setup if you think about it for 2013. And there was this really great moderator, and he walked them through the second version that the company preferred. And then I got surprised. He walked them through. Well, he didn't walk them through. He showed them the second version, said, use this, and then he showed them my version. I was like, how did I end up here? And everyone said, oh, yeah, this one is way better. This one's way, I like this one way better. And I was like, cool. But the spooky horror part of the story is out of the 8 live participants, 7 of them volunteered without being asked, but I'd never work with this company. I'd never use this. It was just like your story. They said I would never want to do business with this company because it had to do with getting medical tests. And they said, why would I go to your company and pay cash for lab tests when I can go through my health insurance, or I can go to a free clinic who runs these types of tests? Why would I go through you? I wouldn't do this. And I was, in my apartment screaming like, yes, because I was like, something is not right about this business model. And then I found out later their big investor was a health insurance company. And of course, the health insurance company is hoping that people won't use their health insurance and that for some reason they'll decide to pay cash for these medical tests. The whole thing was a mess. And within a couple of years, that startup went out of business because that was not a thing. Ooh, we're getting more anonymous ones in. Steph, do you have one while I track that one down?
Why you check that? So on the horror story,
David's
but
in the chat.
I don't
Go
see the
ahead.
chat. It's all blurry, so you have to read it if you want to read some stuff on the screen. It's pixel soup on my screen.
That's
So
delicious.
now on
You're
the
right. I did turn down your resolution because our last guest had some dodgy internet, and I turned the resolution down. I'll turn it up for you. It might, I don't know, it probably won't fix our delay, but hopefully your stuff will look better. So I apologize about that. Let me quickly read David's while I work on fixing your resolution. David wrote, oh, I need to find the resolution thing. Another good one, David says. This seems too easy for the user to use, which means our rebate redemption rate will be too high. Can you make it harder to use?
What's the rebate redemption rate? What's that?
I guess, well, a rebate is usually like when you buy something and it says like send in this coupon and you'll get
Discount.
20
Okay.
euros.
Yeah, okay.
There, I bumped up
So that's
the
starting
bandwidth back to you. Hopefully that will help. Yeah, too easy to use. All right. So let's see. Another one that came in says, my spooky story. My boss once asked me to ask whether people would use the system during the usability testing session so he could show off this bit of the recording to investors if the feedback from participants was good.
Yeah. If it was bad, then it's kind of a double-edged sword, you know.
Right. Did you show that? That's right.
But that's my issue.
Do we suck?
Yeah.
Yes, we do. Go ahead.
That's the problem I have with when I have some people who take notes and they're not used to taking notes for tests or even interviews. Sometimes they tend to only write down the positive stuff people will say, but they forget to write down the negative things. And I always have to remind, like, it's okay if they don't like it. It's okay if they're frustrated with us because we're here to improve it. So don't cherry pick the quotes. Like if you're going to do take notes down everything, the good and the bad stuff. Otherwise, we'll have completely biased notes, and also we need to improve stuff. So if we have people saying, "Oh, this is not good, this doesn't work," that's good actually for us as a research team, because then we know what we need to improve into the next sprints or something. But yeah, so the cherry picking is always like, no, please don't do that. It's not only unethical, it's also you basically shoot yourself in the foot. It's like, oh, everything is great and we don't need to improve anything. So yeah, why do we even have designers? If everything is already great, do we need them?
Everything is already great. That should be on a shirt. Yeah, Heath says, once upon a time, a senior bank executive made a personal stake in the digital wallet craze. They came to UX with money and excitement. We created a proof of concept and started testing. 2 rounds of 6 different participants. Main finding, I don't know why I would use this over Apple or Samsung or Google Pay since they are 1 step to payment versus 4 to get to yours. The executive ignored all of the findings and funded the project. $32 million later, that wallet is no longer on the market. Ouch.
We have a similar story with a product where, but it's a little bit tricky because I was, I think 3 years or 4 years in the job. So I wasn't fighting as hard as I fight today against silly decisions. And we were working on an iPad app and also a website. So my company was working on the websites, and the iPad app was outsourced to another company because we only did some web stuff. And I was in a meeting with the company who was doing the iPad app, and they were like, they kind of explained what the company was, who they were, and they never mentioned the designer. So at some point they were like, okay, we will do that, that, and that. So I asked who will do the design of the iPad app, and it's like, yeah, we will do it on ourselves. Then I kind of insisted, I'm like, yeah, but we're already doing the design of the website. If you want, we can do the design of the iPad app as well. And I think I didn't really specify what do the design means. And I think for those guys, it meant basically we'll put paint on top of the projects. So then they did their stuff. They did the iPad app. Yeah, they sent us the prototype and they're like, yeah, no, do the design. I'm like, what do you mean, do the design? You already have a fully functional prototype. Can we change things? I say, oh, no, you can't change anything. We use the framework. It has to work like that. We can't change anything. You can just put some colors on the buttons. I was like, yeah, okay. So what you have to, it was a linear flow. You have to do that, then that, then that. And what they had is like 3 tabs. First tab, you do that. Then second tab, you need to understand you need to go to the second tab to get the stuff that you did on the first tab and do something else with that. And then anyway, complete disaster. You don't even need to test that. It's just like very poor information architecture. So we told to the client, I was like, look, this is not going to work it doesn't make sense to have to go through 3 tabs while it's a linear process. Just use your iPhone. You understand how bad it is. And the guy's like, yeah, but I don't know, maybe we could try it with users and we could do kind of the MVP and put it on the store and then we change it later. And at the end of the meeting, I was able to convince him
we'll
to
fix
at least
it later.
At the end of the meeting, I was like, yay, I convinced him to do usability tests. So small victory. So we started scheduling. And then he got a phone call. He went outside. And when he came back, he was like, yeah, it was many investors. So no, we're not going to do the usability test. We're not going to change it. He said, we don't have the budget anymore. So we will put what was developed as an MVP on the store. And then we will change it for the next, like when we have more money, of course. No one used the damn thing. The project doesn't exist anymore. I'm like, yep. So there were a lot of different problems on that project, and the usability of the iPad app was just kind of the tip of the iceberg. But still, it's like, yeah, let's put the MVP out and hope we will make money out of it. It's like, yeah, but it's so bad, you will not make money out of this. We don't even need to do usability testing to know that this is bad. Like, trust the designer. Yeah.
Horror. Okay, I'm going to jump to another story that we got anonymously. This one sounded a little bit weird. Someone wrote, spooky story. During my time at famous bank, I was once told by a manager from London, I am so eager to set up a team in Eastern European country. I have never worked with a low-cost center before.
Okay, that's very bad.
It's not the right thing to say.
I don't even...
Don't say that.
Who would say... Yeah, like, who would say that? Yay, I'm looking forward to underpay people. I've never tried that. I wonder what it's gonna look like. No.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful stuff. I have a story I'm dying to tell about an interview. I was interviewing many years ago, 2014. And we were looking for a senior UX designer. And the company I worked at really had a lot of things divided. They had a big UX team, so we had separate researchers, we had separate UI designers. The UX designers really just had to do the UX work, the information architecture and the interaction design. We didn't have to do the visual design or research or any of that stuff. And we're interviewing this guy and he's all charisma and I'm not buying it. So finally they let me ask a question and I said, can you please tell me your UX process? And he goes, yeah, sure. He goes, I just open Adobe Illustrator and I start designing. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. I meant your UX process. You know, there wasn't design thinking so much at the time. Nobody was saying that, but I expected him to say user-centered design or first I do this, then I do this, or I do information architecture. Like I expected to hear something that sounded like a process. And when I asked him again, he goes, yeah, I open up Adobe Illustrator and I just design. And I was like,
Wow.
no further questions? And I think they hired him. I ended up quitting a few weeks later, but I think they hired him.
I had a guy like
So
that.
many stories about that company.
It was fun
Go ahead.
because we were recruiting a UX designer, and the whole interview, I got the impression that he was applying for a UI position where someone would do the UX with big air quotes. And the whole thing was really, really strange. Like at some point, I asked questions. I was like, yeah, how do you do that? And it's like, yeah, I do that. And then I asked the person, I was like, this is actually, that person doesn't exist. That person is the job you're applying
That's
for.
you.
That's
That
you.
person
It's
is
supposed to
you.
be you. Yeah. And then I don't remember what I asked. And he said, like, the one thing you can't say to me in an interview is, yeah, but I just think UX design, it's just common sense. And it's like, what? Oh boy. And then I saw my boss because he knew me, and I think if there were popcorn in the room, he would just have taken the bucket and eaten it. Well, I was just like, well, okay, let's say it's common sense. Can you explain to me why so many websites are poorly designed? Does the whole industry lack common sense? Or like, you can't say it's common sense if you can convince me, but it's like, yeah, he didn't get the job. I tried to be nice,
No,
to be
I
honest,
would
but at some
imagine not.
point, yeah.
Yep. Well, hey everybody, don't forget to subscribe and tell friends about the show. I've got some more that came in. This one came in today anonymously. It says, someone had an idea to have a tooltip on a chart. And then the tooltip would have a chart that would have another tooltip.
I'm sorry, what? No, it's not funny, but like, what?
Should I read that again?
So you have because a tooltip is something small. How do you put okay? It's a very big tooltip. It has a chart in it, and then there's oh gosh. Yeah.
And then the chart in the tooltip has its own tooltip. So it's like eternal mirroring, when you share your screen and you're sharing the screen that you're sharing the screen. It's the tooltip.
You don't want it to be jealous,
the chart tooltip with a chart with a tooltip.
I had that with model windows.
You can have a tooltip too.
Yeah, they came to me, like business analysts came to me. It's like, yeah, we have a problem. So when you click this button, it opens the model window. And inside the model window, we have 2 tabs. And in the second tab, we have a table. Like, okay, And in the table, you need to be able to modify things. And, well, when you click on a button, what should happen? Should we put a model window to modify the stuff in the table in the second tab of the model window? That you like, oh, this is you draw the line. It's like a table into the second tab of a model window is okay, but then you're like, yeah, maybe, it's like, nope, maybe this should be a page. If you have so much content in your model window.
And then you know that it's like a light box, and if someone clicks outside of it, the whole thing's just going to disappear and you'll lose all that work.
Yeah. But I like that they came to me like, I'm going to have a solution. I was like, I have a solution for you, but it's not the quick and dirty solution you're expecting me to give you. It's like, we need to rework that stuff so that it's not a model window anymore. And yeah, we ended up reworking the thing. I was like, yay, it sounds like a tooltip inside a tooltip. Yeah.
I'd like a tooltip about the tooltip, please. So here is a super one that we got anonymously, and it says, we had a UX intern in their first UX job ever quit in a blaze of glory because They shouldn't be given grunt work. They should be leading projects and informing strategy. The intern also lectured us about how UX immature the company was, which was true, but quitting like this sure didn't help us show our leadership why they should hire more of us. My boss's exact words were, "Over my dead body, will they ever work here again?"
Yeah. That's the hard part, because when you have people like that, good luck convincing them that there's actually other UX designer researcher who do kind of a good job. It's already super hard to start
Right.
with, but if they have this kind of bad experience before, ouch.
Let's see. Here's another one that we got. I had a colleague once who, as the only person on the team, took a vacation in the middle of a very busy time without notifying anyone apart from their manager. She left her teammates hanging and didn't care. If she would ever ask me for a reference, which I doubt because she doesn't like me and the feeling is mutual, she would hear crickets. Creepy.
Yep, indeed.
Oh, I can think of a creepy interview I had a couple of years ago. So, I think it was like senior or lead UX something or other, guest designer. And the guy says to me, "What's your UX process?" I'm thinking, perfect, I can answer this one. So I talk about user-centered design and, the whole thing, user-centered design. He goes, "And what's your experience design process?" And I'm thinking, user experience design versus experience design.
The same.
I didn't know how to answer that. I thought these two were the same thing. Yes, right. User experience design and experience design, as far as I can tell, are the same things. I know some people were trying to get the term experience design going as kind of a replacement and take the user out of it. I don't know why. But that was an extremely awkward moment. I did not get called back for another interview, and that was okay. We have another anonymous one. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, based on how the interview goes, you're like, yeah, it's okay. I don't want that job anyway.
That's right. That's absolutely fine. Thank you. That was like a job interview I had maybe 2 years ago. I made it to the point where they wanted to give me some sort of challenge. And I hate doing challenges, but I was like, all right, what is it? And they said, "We want you to make a customer journey map." And I said, "Based on what?" And they said, "No, just make a customer journey map and then talk us through it." And I said, "But a customer journey map is an artifact of observational or interview research. We know the customer journey because we watched it. Are you asking me to just make up a fake customer journey map?" And they were like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay, so you recognize that I'm not going to do any real research and I'm just making a totally fake customer journey map." And after that, I did it anyway for just to see how they would react, but I did not want the job after that because I'm like, is that how we make customer journey maps here? We just guess at them and make stuff up, and that's how you're going to assess what I can do strategically by looking at how pretty is my customer journey map?
I had a similar experience with the way they treated me. I didn't want the job even if I got it. So they asked me to do a design challenge. I was like, okay, but the design challenge was saying you need to wow the user twice, like wow the user. So I already knew it was kind of like meh. But okay, let's see. So I did the challenge. I actually had friends who were in the target audience. So I interviewed 2 friends First, because I needed to understand what the product was, but also because it wasn't not at all something I was used to. So they really helped me. So I did a small interview with them. Of course, they didn't care about the interview. They wanted the UI, so I created the UI. I exported very low resolution of the stuff, PDF with big watermark and everything in case I wanted to reuse it. Here we go. And I sent it on Monday, I think. Didn't hear from them. Not even a thank you, we got your challenge, like nothing. So I was like, at some point I wondered if they even got it. But I was interviewing for 2 companies, and the other company, they made me an offer. So on Friday, the challenge company called me. The recruiter was like, hey, you got the job. I was like, hey, you got my challenge. Good to know. It's like, okay. I was super clear. The other company made me an offer. So if you're going to make me an offer now, make me your best one, because I've already got another one and I'm about to sign with the other one. So they made me an offer that was roughly kind of the same. Then, so I checked the stuff. On Monday, I chose the other company. I was completely busy. Monday evening, the guy called me. I was like, yeah, sorry, I finally accepted the offer of the other company. I thanked him and everything. I thought like, okay, that's done. The day after that, I spent the whole day doing some workshops with some users. So I was completely not checking my phone. I came back for lunch. I had like 5 or 6 missed calls. I was like, what the fuck? Then I checked my emails. The CEO of that company sent me an email saying, oh, I'm super sorry you didn't accept, So he explained how it would be an amazing company for me because there were other people playing League of Legends, which is a video game. I was like, okay. That's cool, but still, and he kind of raised the offer a little bit higher, but I was like, so I thanked him again. I was like, oh, very thank you, but I've already accepted the offer of the other company, so yeah. And he was like, yeah, call me back as soon as possible. So I just answered during lunch. I was like, yeah, I don't have time. I'm in meetings and stuff. And then he called me back in the evening. I made the mistake of taking the call, and he explained everything, and I was like, yeah, but I've already accepted the other company's offer. I signed the stuff. So he went, yeah, but don't worry, what you can do is you can tell them you don't want to come anymore, and if they force you, you will just not come on your first day. I'm like, is this even legal? And the guy went, oh, don't worry, we will cover any legal issues, cost you will have. It's like, and at this point, where you're into a conversation, you just want to get out. You can't believe what you're hearing.
Yeah.
And you would just say anything to get rid of that. I was like, yeah, think about it. I was like, yeah, sure, I will think about it. Have a nice day. I was like, what the hell? And the thing is, that company was listed as partner for the other company. So I reached out to the HR. I was like, look, I also applied to them. They're becoming a little bit very weird. Is it okay if at some point I name drop you, or like, will you ever send me to work with them at some point? Can I be kind of a little bit more persuasive? Because apparently saying no 3 times is not enough. And the guy was like, yeah, sure, it's just on paper, we're partner, but you'll never see them. It's like, okay, then. So I name dropped the other company, and then that kind of calmed down a little bit, the CEO. And he went like, yeah, the door will always be open. It's like, yeah, no. And 6 months after, he sends me an email and I was like, hey, are you still happy? Because the door is always open. It's like, oh my God, it must be so, I don't know, like, imagine working with that guy. You tell him no once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and he still insists. I'm like, no, actually, just based on the way you're behaving, it's kind of super red flags. I don't want to work with you, for you, ever, I think. But like, yeah, really, really, really creepy hiring stuff.
Oh, thanks for subscribing. Yeah, that's a super horror story. I wanted to yell, don't go in the basement during that one. Like, oh my gosh, don't take that job. Don't.
Nope.
Don't any of these things. So during your story, someone sent in a horror job posting. They said they found a job posting that was senior UX researcher qualitative, and they're looking for experience in UI flows, sketching, brainstorming, low, mid, high fidelity designs, Figma, Illustrator, and Photoshop.
Yay!
Good luck with your research work, which of course can completely be conducted in Photoshop.
Of course. You make nice little drawings and everything.
I think we have one more, and then we need to end early so I can prepare for the live conference I'm speaking at. And this one says, I once worked in a very self-led autonomous team. We worked a lot individually, but obviously also had to do a fair bit of co-work. On one occasion, where the entire team were scheduled to work on an admin-heavy planning task together for an entire day, this colleague didn't show up. The manager didn't know where he was. He was a poor manager, but that's a separate story. I called the colleague who was on his way to do a consultancy gig. He was like, "You'll manage this without me, ta-da!" He got moved to a different team a couple of years later and made life miserable for us, his old team, by sharing stories of how well paid we were compared to the work we delivered, which was untrue. Needless to say, when he eventually got fired and asked me to be a reference for him, I was like, nope, would never refer a bad colleague to anyone else. He's still employed from what I know, and this happened years ago. So I think he stepped on everybody he meets and works with, and he doesn't seem to get it. He feels very sorry for himself.
Yeah.
And of course, we cannot forget the story that started, in a way, started some of the idea of this show, which was the guy I found on LinkedIn who said he worked for Delta CX when he's never worked for Delta CX. And I guess that wasn't enough because under his credentials and certificates on LinkedIn, he put that Delta CX had given him a certification in information architecture and interaction design. And of course, we have no such certification. So he invented a fake certification. He invented a fake job that he said he'd been working at all year. And of course, I screenshot that, put it on LinkedIn to let everybody know this person does not work for me, because LinkedIn doesn't give me a way to go in and take my company off someone's LinkedIn. I can't really do anything about it. And over 80,000 people saw that post. And I think that and then, of course, people came out of the woodwork and were contacting me privately saying, oh, yeah, I talked to that guy and here's something weird that he did. And so I was like, okay, this guy is just unethical. This guy is just a liar and possibly a scammer. And he thought that that was going to be his ticket into UX, lying. And of course, I'm sure it works for a few people, but it doesn't work as much as people think it works. Steph, we're going to need to wrap up. It's been a fun horror story. Exactly. It's been a fun horror story, campfire sort of adventure. Hi, Hossam. We're wrapping up for the day. I will be back tomorrow. Remember, 6:30 Italy time. We just had daylight savings time, so check what time 6:30 Italy is for you. We had some requests in the Slack community for me to do a show on how I juggle my time management. So I will be speaking very personally about my own time management to see if that helps other people. But Steph, you get mostly the last word. Anything you want to say to the fans or where they can find you?
So Twitter, LinkedIn, you have everything on stephaniewalter.com. And I think last word would be it's a small community. If you do shady stuff, maybe people don't talk in public, but like I have people who steal my content and I'm not hunting them down. I have people in the community who know my work and just say, oh, that person stole your work. So it's a small community. People talk, so don't do shady things. someone will know at some point, and it will come and bite you somewhere we should not say, because I don't want to end up with issue on the YouTube channel. But
you already swore on the show. You already swore. So, but thanks to Steph for joining today on our wacky show. Sorry about the delay, but I hope to see everybody tomorrow to talk about time management. And for now, I'm going to have to say goodbye. I've got to go speak at a conference. Bye, everybody. Be well. Bye, Steph. Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are